This will give you an opportunity to testify. Please be seated. They gave me this new rock and roll microphone this morning. I'm not sure I like it. But we'll see how it works. I just don't want to blast you out with the thing. When I was in high school, there was a popular movement in some Christian churches to interpret certain scriptures in very literal ways and apply them to the times in which we live. This was especially true for apocalyptic sounding scriptures. In saying this, unfortunately, I do not date myself, because Christians have been doing this with passages of scripture for 2,000 years. Somebody, somewhere, in every generation, has claimed that the end times are upon us. Now, don't get me wrong. We are supposed to apply Scripture to our own lives and to the times in which we live. But most passages of Scripture need to be understood in context. And there are certain passages that we have to be careful about interpreting the wrong way so that we don't create misunderstandings or get ourselves in trouble. Today's Gospel reading offers one of those seemingly tricky passages for us. Let me get a show of hands here this morning. How many of you remember Herod's temple? The temple that Jesus is talking about this morning. Anybody been to see it during a vacation? I didn't think so. Actually, if you had raised your hand, I'd be a little worried about you. Because Herod's temple was completely destroyed by the Romans 37 years after Jesus was crucified. But it was a magnificent place and a marvel of architecture and engineering for the time. Herod had begun building the new temple complex before Jesus was born. Although key parts of it were complete while Jesus was traveling and ministering to people in Jerusalem, the final touches were not put on the entire structure until nearly 30 years after Jesus was dead. Herod's temple expanded the temple complex in Jerusalem to 5 or 6 times the size of Solomon's temple, which had been destroyed by the Babylonians 700 years before. Herod was proud of his temple. The Pharisees and Sadducees who headquartered there were proud of it. It was a sight to behold, and it dominated the mountain on which Jerusalem was built. So it's no wonder that some of the disciples started gawking at the building that surrounded them, and that people in the crowd were talking about the temple when Jesus was trying to teach. Now, rather than saying, "Johnny, is there something you'd like to share with the whole class?" Jesus instead puts the wonder of the temple building in perspective by pointing out that the days are coming when it will all be thrown down, and not one stone will be left standing on another. If you wonder how that felt, I would urge you to think about all the people who come to Trinity Church and who go on about how beautiful it is. The wood carving, the beams, the stained glass, the pipe organ, the marble and the brass, the plaques honoring the dedication of various gifts that went into its building. Just like the temple, adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God. Then imagine being their tour guide, standing at the back of the nave and saying to them, "Yeah, it's nice, but it's just brick and stone and wood, and it will all be demolished pretty soon." It's rather deflating. People listening to Jesus say, "Teacher, when will this be? And what will be the sign that this is about to take place?" No doubt some of them were feeling a little cynical, and they wanted to put Jesus on the spot. So a key to interpreting today's gospel reading is built right into the passage itself. We often don't put 2 and 2 together, though. The people asked Jesus about the destruction of the temple specifically. And we know that the temple was completely destroyed together with most of the city of Jerusalem in the year 70. So the wars and insurrections and earthquakes and famines and portents in the heavens that Jesus mentions are all things that will happen in the following 37 years leading up to the destruction of the temple. In fact, we know that all these things did happen, as they are recorded in places in the New Testament and in the writings of Josephus, and are documented by other Roman and Greek historians of the time. Now, that doesn't mean that similar events won't keep happening right up to today and beyond. But Jesus is talking in this passage specifically with reference to the destruction of Herod's temple. He is not talking about the end of the world. He does that in other places. All that being said, there is something that we should take to heart from this passage, and it's easy to overlook. Jesus points out that his followers will be arrested and persecuted and abused and brought before authorities because of their faith in him. This certainly did not come to an end with the destruction of the temple. And Jesus says something interesting. He says, this will give you an opportunity to testify. This will give you an opportunity to testify. Let's back up for a moment and consider what Jesus is pointing out here. All kinds of terrible things may be happening to you, but the point is not the terrible things. The point is not the inconvenience. The point is not that you might or might not be considered important because of what you endure. No. The point is that these events will give you an opportunity to testify. Well, there is something in common with Herod's glorious temple here. After all, the point of the temple was not to be glorious in itself, although I'm sure Herod enjoyed the attention and congratulations that it brought him. No, the point of the temple was to point to God. The point of the temple was to testify. Likewise, Trinity Church. The point is not to wow people with such a magnificent church building, nor to give credit to those who contributed to its construction. The point of the church building is to point to God, who is worshipped here. The point is that the building is an opportunity to testify. I'm reminded of the joy that I take in building a good campfire. Wood doesn't burn well just any old way, as many of you know. The sticks and branches and logs chosen are important. Their spacing is important. Their placement relative to one another and how they will catalyze the fire as it grows, it's all important. It's easy to build a beautiful stack of firewood that you know is going to catch fire easily and grow quickly into a good-sized fire that will last a long time. And then to stand back and think, now that's beautiful. But what is it for? It's designed to burn. It's an opportunity for fire. It's easy for us to forget the whole point of our lives. We get caught up in the ins and outs of living, the things that seem important from one day to the next. We obsess about the difficulties we have to endure, the sickness, the torn relationships, the car repairs, the death. And we glory in things that go well. The new car, the new house, the wedding, the kids' birthdays, vacations, great meals. We relish these things, and it's not wrong to relish them. We should relish these things. But we should not forget the point of it all. Everything good that we experience and everything bad that we experience, it is all an opportunity to testify. Now, I don't expect all of you to stand up one by one and give your life testimony, but I would urge you, as I have to constantly remind myself, don't just go through life taking everything for granted. Stop. Stop several times a day and testify. Say to yourself, God is with me in this moment. God was with me through that difficult thing that I just went through. God was with me as I enjoyed that blessing. God is giving me this friend to hug. God knows I lost my job. God is letting me put this Band-Aid on my daughter's knee. Everything is an opportunity to testify. We should not be shy about our faith. Our faith is not something that we dreamed up. Our faith is in Jesus Christ, and he brings us light and life in all things. If there was no Jesus Christ, none of us would be here this morning. And I don't just mean in this room worshiping God. I mean we wouldn't be here at all. We wouldn't exist. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. So I ask you, is anything prompting you to testify today? The answer is yes, you know.